Hello, everyone. I'm Gwen Callahan, one of the directors of Portland Horror Film Festival, and I'm delighted to be here today with director and writer Adam Reider of Woodland Gray.
Hi, everybody.
I was like, welcome, Adam.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to be here. This is so super cool.
So Adam, you are coming to us from what looks like maybe a bomb shelter in Montreal?
Yeah, I'm in a bunker 7 miles under the Earth's crust. No, this is my basement. But yeah, I am in Montreal, hanging out. It's a beautiful day today. I wish I could be there with you guys, though.
We do too. We really do too. But that's okay. We have you virtual, and we'll record it so that people can watch it later as well. Woodland Gray is playing in the theater on Friday, and it's also streaming online. And the stream will continue through July 6th. So if you missed it when it first came out, you still have a little time to catch up. So Adam, Woodland Gray is quite a remarkable piece of film and art, and I can't wait to dive into this with you. Where did this story come from, first of all?
It's a good question. I think with a lot of stories, they come from all over the place, but I think maybe the little tiny spark happened from, I was reading a story it might've been like the New York Times or something like that, where it was a feature about this guy who I think lived in New England in the woods alone. He was like a hermit. And he lived there for like 17 years and would like sneak into people's houses and steal food. And he got caught eventually. And the journalist went and spoke with him in prison to try to like get an understanding of like, why would he do that? What would cause somebody to go live in the woods? There wasn't really an answer, but I thought it was such a compelling question. Like, what would cause somebody to give up on society and then go off to the woods alone? And just change their life and be totally alone in the woods. And so that was sort of like the question that sparked it. And then when I started working with my co-writer Jesse Tufexis, I posed him that question, and then we started to rattle off all different kinds of possibilities of what would make somebody do that. And that eventually turned into Woodland Gray.
All right. Okay, so that's the genesis of the story, and then in your work and your, I guess, horror preferences, your taste, do your tastes run to the supernatural and weird generally?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a hard question. I think that I think it's more about tone that I really like. I like all horror movies, so there's no discrimination. But I tend to gravitate more towards the films that are really slow burning, that really take a while to like settle in. I'm not a huge fan of jump scares. Not that I don't like getting scared sometimes, but I feel like it could be too easy sometimes. I feel like it's a lot more of a challenge to creep somebody out than to make somebody jump. No offense to people who do the jump scares, but it's like I think I like the challenge of scaring people slowly instead of fast. Yeah, I think that's that's something that's interesting to me. And then like the sci-fi supernatural, um yeah, I think it, like, if it's done in a way that's sort of like either really rooted in a believable reality, or so far and so ridiculous that it becomes a really good time. I think finding that balance. So yeah, I think I tend to gravitate towards movies like that.
Okay. A little off kilter. I mean, that's totally my taste in horror. I like it when things go towards the weird and unexplained, or where the characters, in this case, the hiker, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. Sorry. Sleep deprivation.
That's okay.
Is
Jenny.
operating. Jenny is
Yeah.
very
Well, Emily in the movie, but her name is
Emily,
Jenny in
thank
real
you.
life. Yeah.
She's operating under real world rules, like under the assumption that real world normal, like shared reality rules are at play, and doing all of the right things. I'm really impressed with how she knows how to do everything. Like, she's been trained for all this stuff, but her actions in light of that one piece of information that she is missing just make everything like much worse. And I really enjoy that aspect of, like, had she known, like, had she read from the book, like, she would know not to do this thing. But since she doesn't know that, she has to come to that conclusion herself. How did you kind of craft the story in a way that brings the viewer along for that ride with her?
Well, I think it was important for us to have the audience believe what she believes first, and to sort of go along with, like, we're going to present the audience with information that is not, I don't want to say it's not truthful, but it's not giving you the whole picture. And so when we introduce Emily into the story, the audience believes what she believes. She sees, I mean, we know that something's not right, but like, we're still kind of operating the way she's operating. And only until a certain point does the audience start to question, what, hang on a second, maybe the man isn't totally crazy. Maybe he's something, there's something truthful about what he's saying. And we start to question, like, what our beliefs are, and sort of playing with that narrative. So we knew what's happening in the forest. We sort of set up a bunch of rules about how the forest works and what it's there for and why. And then sort of introduced the information to the audience on a need to know basis, to try to keep the audience engaged, keep them guessing. I think it's really fun to, like, think that, like, who to guess who the villain is, and then think that maybe that isn't the villain, maybe this person's the villain, and then, like, no, actually, maybe that's not what it is. And in doing so, we're sort of letting people feel a little, I mean, the hope is that we let people feel a little more emotionally connected to our characters, because they'll be just as sort of just as confused as the people in the film, and then at the end coming to conclusions that can be different at times, but yeah, they'll come to their conclusions and carry on from there.
Mm. Okay, nice. Um, with the just the location of the woods is very, it almost becomes a character because of how, like, immersed they are in, then they can't escape from it.
Mhm.
um when you were choosing locations, what were some of the key things that attracted you to that location?
Well, it's interesting, like, the forests kind of look the same.
Mm,
Like, we just wanted to have, like, a specific type of tree that would change color, so we gave, like, a time. We knew that it was sort of a fall, like, atmosphere, so we couldn't shoot in a forest that was just full of pine,
mm,
because that doesn't really help us. um and so once we sort of established the type of look that we wanted the forest to be in, finding the actual location was really, to be honest, more about logistics than anything else.
mm,
How do we find a decent looking forest that has really cool spots to shoot in, but is also not so far away from civilization that bring an entire cast and crew out there is going to be really challenging. Like we were not prepared to be sleeping in tents for this shoot. So we were like, we actually shot in two different locations. Actually three, to be honest. Was we did our principal photography over about 15 days, which was shot over in two locations, and then we came back and shot 2 more days 1 year later for pickups and reshoots, and that was in a third location. And yeah, I mean, it just was just to make sure that we had like the right visuals, but also close to electricity and a place to stay. And so half of it was shot. Part of it was shot on in the backwoods of a vineyard, and part of it was shot up in a place in Quebec called La Macaza, which is where I have lots of family who lives in that area, so we're able to shoot on in the back parts of a couple of houses of family members. And then the third one was the third spot was just somewhere just outside of Montreal, in somebody also just a friend's backyard who had like his parents have this like really nice piece of land. But you know, sometimes you could shoot, and that was interesting because there was parts of the movie that have some pine in it, and so when we had to shoot our reshoots, there was one part that on the left side of the road had all these like maple trees, and on the right side of the road had all these pine. And so we were able to shoot like this scene was on this side of the road and that scene was on that side of the road to sort of match with the rest of the scenery.
Nice. Happy accidents.
Yeah, but
I
it's
like
funny because like when you're shooting in the woods, you're like, if you haven't blocked out your shots in advance in terms of like the actual location, like you could have your blocking of where your actors are going to go, but it's nice because you could wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I think I want to shoot in this direction now. You found a tree that really speaks to you. You're like, this is going to be great to like shoot right next to this tree, and then like, okay, the sun's coming from here, so we move the camera around the tree. So even though we had like our shots lined up, we knew sort of what had to happen in each scene, and we had like general areas for major moments of the film. There was a lot of shots that were like, okay, we need to shoot and we need to have like her walking down this way, and we can shoot in the same roughly in the same location by just turning the camera to the left or to the right, and like the audience would never know as long as you're sure that she's walking the right direction across the camera. Everything sort of matches in that spot, so we really got to exploit the area that we were in, and make it look really yeah, like you said, like we like a character in the film.
Yeah, and especially the scene when she finds the first red ribbon tied around the tree, and then she finds the next one and the next one, and then realizes that there's way more red ribbons here than what I put up, and they're all in the wrong places. That is just a beautiful moment of I think the realization, her realization that things are not, this is not normal. Like something else is happening and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was so funny. I mean, that scene I remember sort of coming up with that scene with Jesse, and when we had this revelation of like, what if she, you know, she finds all of these things, all of these ribbons, it just we got so excited. The implications of it, you know, the idea that you know, you might think you're getting out, but you're really not. Every time you, I mean, it's like the Godfather. Every time I try to get out, they pull me back in. You know, trying to do this thing, but also just the visual of it is just would, you know, was going to look so beautiful, and then it did, and it was a practical effect. We had our crew just like spend a few hours tying millions of red ribbons to these trees, so there's not one digital ribbon in the film. Yeah, it looked really cool. I'm so happy how that scene turned out.
It was, yeah, it's a chilling scene. um and like the it's such an expansive film in terms of the landscape and the setting and everything, but it is really kind of two people interacting with each other in fairly close quarters. How did you find your actors for this? because
That's a loaded question.
they were marvelous.
They're great. They're so great. I mean, if you were to do a very basic Google search about the origins of Woodland Gray, it would bring you to, like, if you typed it in, I think like a Kickstarter would show up. And in the Kickstarter, you could see that our actors were not originally going to be these actors. We had made an agreement with Bill Moseley was going to be in the film. We had Sid Haig was interested in the film, and oh no, I can't remember her name. She was in Halloween 4, I think, is like the kid. What's her name? Danielle something.
Danielle Harris.
Yeah, Danielle Harris. And like we were sort of like rolling with that, and like maybe a month and a half or 2 months before we were like gearing up to shoot, we found out that like Danielle Harris, like no one told us, but Danielle Harris was like 8 months pregnant. And we're like, what? How can we? I mean, you've seen the movie, you know how absurd that would be. For all, like, so many different reasons. It would require a huge rewrite, not to mention the fact that we're an independent film. It's like we're not going to have an 8-month pregnant woman in the middle of the woods. Like, what if something happens, you know? And like issues sort of extended from there, and then at some point where we just like that whole deal was a sort of like a group package fell apart, and so we're like, we need to find people. And so we had connected with some really great casting agents, and they put the word out, and we got Jenny and Ryan to submit their audition tapes, and we were like, I was like, well, this is it. Like, this is a no-brainer. This is better than I had imagined. And what's interesting is like Ryan auditioned with the scene with all the sticks. So he that was his audition. And he played it exactly how you see it in the movie. Because when he auditioned for it, it was so perfect. I was just like, okay, for this scene, remember that audition you did? Just do that. So that's how perfect it was. And I'm so happy. I mean, the movie that we made, like, it would have been a totally different movie if we had those other actors. I'm not saying it would be better or worse, just extremely different. But I feel really, really lucky that Ryan and Jenny came on board just in the nick of time. They learned the script, and they're so professional. Man, they just knew their stuff. And we got out there and just did what we needed to do. And we were really lucky, because it was sort of like, it wasn't 100% last minute, but it was cutting it like dangerously close. So yeah, I'm really lucky that worked out the way it did.
Good. Yeah, their chemistry together was really great, their interplay, and I love that he barely says anything for like the first 2/3 of the movie, until he like clearly has to start talking to her. But did he do any particular preparation? Do you know if he did any preparation for the role by like studying, I don't know, studying hermits? Or that's probably a better question for him. But I was curious about like how, because it's so hard to go through like normal life and you're talking to people and then go from that to playing a character where I feel like his whole internal dialogue is like, I'm not going to explain any of this to you because I can't, and you're not going to understand it. So I'm just not going to speak.
Yeah. Well, and also he, you know, in the first part, like when he first meets her, he's not sure that she's even real.
Right.
He's been duped so many times by these other things. It's like how he can't even trust that this is even happening in reality. So the thing with Ryan, like, I'm not sure what he did to prepare, but his face is such an expressive one that that he didn't really need to say. We could see everything that's going on in his head in the way that he expresses himself through his face, and I think that it's so brilliant. And like, the first cut that we made of this film was like 2.5 hours long, and that whole like this section where he's not talking to anybody lasted like 20 minutes. It went on for such a long time. Even when they meet, there's like all these other things that happened when they're, and he's still not talking. I mean, for pacing and time, and like we get it. We didn't need to see that stuff, but there was so much, and it hurts when it ends up on the cutting room floor, because there's such good moments in those things. But when you're thinking about the bigger picture, it doesn't quite work. But he's just so expressive, the way he can say dialogue without speaking it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, really,
really lucky that way.
great find.
Yeah, yeah.
With the look and feel of Woodland Gray, were you inspired by anything in particular? Any other movies or pieces of art?
Um, I was really inspired by Winnie the Pooh. No, I'm just kidding. Wouldn't that be weird if I was
I
like,
love it. I'm like, I was right with you. Come on.
just like I really like the way that they lived in the forest and there's animals.
The bunny,
Um,
rabbit in particular.
uh, yeah, poor rabbit. Um, yeah, I don't know if there was like any like particular movie that, as far as like the look goes. I mean, I really enjoyed. I like movies that take place in the woods. Um, I like there was a film called what's it called? Something about a mother. But the twins and the mother's like all covered in bandages. What's the name of that movie?
Oh,
Uh,
Good Night, Mommy.
yeah, Good Day Mommy. Yeah, yeah. So I like that was really like in my mind at the time. I love um The Village.
Mm.
I know people either love it or hate it, but I think like I love that movie, and I think it's like one of the most beautifully shot films. So like thinking back now, actually now that you've asked me that question, I do remember using a lot of like imagery from The Village in like pitch packages and stuff, and like examples of things I was trying to go for. Um yeah. People suggest the Blair Witch a lot, but I like the Blair Witch Project, but it doesn't. I mean, visually, it's not the most. I mean, it's not really that interesting. That's supposed to be like that because it's supposed to be handheld, right? So no, it's not a criticism. It's, but yeah, no, I really like the. We tried to like not have anything handheld. We wanted everything to be on a tripod or on a dolly, everything really smooth. I want it to look like really slick. And I really like those sorts of things. Yeah, I think like visually that's sort of where I was going. I know Graham, our director of photography, he had pitched a lot of imagery from The Witch. And there's like one shot from The Witch that like sort of appears in our film. It's the one where it's the very opening shot of like um William holding the lantern, and you see this light, and there's like a very very similar shot in The Witch that just looks so great. So some of that influence definitely came from there as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the story weaves together so much trauma and memory, nostalgia, and all these things. Were you drawing on any personal experiences for the story?
um I mean, maybe yes, but not like any one in particular. I think just the idea of feeling guilt and regret about profound things that you can't change is something that uh, worries me and haunts me. And I feel like it's a universal feeling. I think people feel regret and feel guilt um, in really profound ways. And so I think it was something that Jesse and I thought it would be. It's an interesting topic to explore. Um, I guess like what's interesting is like when we wrote it. Like I said, I didn't have anything in particular. There's like moments in life that you think back on and you view in these ways, but nothing like super profound. But like when the film was done, just before it was completed, my father had passed away. And then I was starting to think about the stuff that the characters were going through in a much more profound way. And I was thinking like, yeah, that's like that I felt like we were pretty accurate now that I was like feeling it afterwards. So it didn't directly influence, but I, it was in there somewhere for sure.
It rang true for you, even.
Yeah, which is good. I would hate imagine I made a movie about guilt and regret and about like the passing of loved ones, and then my father dies, and I was like, that doesn't make sense at all.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there wasn't really anything like in particular, but the idea of like that feeling of hopeless guilt and regret, and I mean a lot of these things translate into depression and anxiety and things that I suffer from, and so drawing from there, not necessarily directly connected to the death of loved ones, but just life in general, definitely feeds into that as source material, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. And you also have another element in your film that we love, and that's a monstrous entity. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also from a standpoint of just creative design and the writing of it?
Yeah. So the thing with this monstrous entity is like we wanted a way to have the forest. When we said that the forest is a character, we mean that literally, and it sort of manifests itself into all these different things. And we wanted to find a way to show. So we have like the forest. I mean, I'm assuming this is after everybody's seen the movie, right? This isn't playing before the film.
No, spoilers are okay.
Spoilers are okay. Yeah, like in the film, we see the forest manifests itself as both like William's daughter and Emily's grandfather. But I was like, what if we see like the forest as an animated thing, but like in its true form? Like, what is the true form of this forest, this entity, this like thing that basically is like guilt and grief? And so we had this idea of it being like a wooden creature, a creature made out of wood. And I'd see there's this a really great artist that I don't forget his name, but he does these driftwood sculptures of people, and they're really cool. So I was like, oh, that would be great to have something similar to that. Have these like walking wooden creatures, and so like we kept referring to that creature as the driftwood man, and we got this guy from Montreal, Remy, who designed this creature, and we found an actor named Mathieu. I forget his last name. Sorry, bud. But he's like super tall and lanky, and was like, this would be really great to like have him fit into this costume. And so we made this. Remy made this like really great mask and these gloves that looked like wood, and this suit that had like these like, thinking about these like mushrooms all over it, sort of like sort of inspired by the you ever seen the show Hannibal? There's like I think the second or third episode, they find these bodies buried in the ground, and they're like, but they're still kept alive, and there's mushrooms growing on them. So I had this, I thought that was really a great idea to have like these mushrooms are keeping this thing, like, it's just showing life in this being. And then we were talking about it more, when we went to do reshoots, I was thinking about like, there's this nefarious version of the forest, but the forest isn't totally, it's not an evil entity. It just is. It's like, this is this entity. So could there be other physicalities of the forest? And like, what if there was something sort of like gentle and like guiding somebody towards either life or death? Thinking about, sort of like a Grim Reaper type of entity, but like a really nurturing version of that. And so that's where this idea of this like white queen entity comes from. And the thing is like, they're all the same thing.
Mhm.
The White Queen is this driftwood person, is the daughter, is the grandfather, is the forest. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. Yeah, so we shot these other things, and a few shots of like this White Queen coming through. And then when we were doing editing, we thought, like, wouldn't it be cool if we had her sort of appear throughout the film? And if you go back and, well, you may have seen a couple, but if you go back and watch, she appears like 5 or 6 times throughout the film that you don't really see. Sometimes you see, sometimes you don't. Sometimes she's, sometimes there's a shadow in the shape of her. Sometimes she's like lurking in the background. Sometimes she's like just slightly off camera. And the Driftwood Man appears throughout the film as well. So all of these, like, sometimes you look in the background and you're like, if you look really hard, you could see him just standing in the background. So we sort of hid all of these creatures around, to I guess help support the idea that all of these things are really just different versions of the same thing.
Mhm.
I
Interesting. I mean, you
I
can
know
really,
it's not
take.
really sorry, what's that?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I know it's not the most easily understood or accessible idea, but that's okay. I like the idea that it's like open to interpretation as well.
Well, it's very much, I think it's very much a reflection of a person. Like we are each of us not just one thing, but we have different sides of ourselves. And for me, when I was watching the film, I had this feeling like, um, so there's this little girl, but it's something that's manifested. Is it a manifestation of his guilt? And then it like tries to burn him and like really messes him up. And but it never quite kills him. And like, is that his guilt and manifesting as this. And then for her with her grandfather, and it comes around, and hearing your explanation of kind of all these different facets of it really does feel like a mirror world where all of your stuff is coming out and then being reflected back at you, whereas the woods has no intent for like ill will or anything against you. It's just what you bring with you.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
like when Luke Skywalker goes into the tunnel and Yoda tells him,
Yeah,
what's in there? Only what you bring with you.
so good. Yeah, exactly. My movie is basically Star Wars. um yeah, I mean, I think that, like, it's yeah, like emotions aren't anything more than just emotions. Emotions aren't uh they're not going to kill you. They're not, they just are. It just is. It's just a thing that exists, and it's like how you react to them is the thing that counts. And like, for a large part, when we meet William, he has quite literally bottled up, like he's locked his emotions away in a shed, and it's sort of working for him. It's not great. He's still stuck in a place, but he's like locked it. He's like basically pushed it down and not having to deal with it. And only once that he's like, that it's been out there and it's open and now he has to deal with it, um, is he able to become free. Um, and what's interesting about, like, I think people's interpretations of the film, so I mean, by now it's played at like quite a number of festivals and places, and there's been a number of eyes on it, which is really special. And sometimes I get to talk with people who have seen the film afterwards, and they say, I think I understand. I think I know. I have an idea of like what it's all about and like what the ending is and means, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. And here's what it is. And two things happen after they tell me, or two things about what it is that they tell me is sort of very common. One is that their idea, what they think it is very common with everybody else. Like they're not thinking, it's not somebody like, oh, maybe they were dinosaurs pretending to be humans. Like, it's never been like out there. It's pretty consistent about how people's interpreting the film. And the other thing is like, it's pretty close, if not exactly what we were thinking that we wanted it to say. But I think it's really fascinating. People are very nervous, or yeah, they're nervous, or they don't feel confident in what their interpretation is because it's not spelled out. But they're like, well, it probably, then probably wrong what I think, but you know, they're mostly 99% of the time right. This is what this film is about. Um, and yeah, I think that's super cool. I think people should, you know, it's okay to, you know what, if they came up with a weird random totally different version, explanation for what the film is about and what happens, then that's cool too. I'm down. It doesn't have to be what we set out to do, you know.
Nice. Well, I love that people kind of can come to their own conclusion, and you do leave it a little open at the end. I think the first time we watched it, I was like, I have questions,
Yeah,
but my questions were mostly answered by thinking about what I had just seen and like sitting with it for a minute, and then I'm like, okay, that all made sense. That all makes sense to me. So, well done.
yeah. Thank you. That's really the goal. We just want the movie to doesn't have to resonate with you, but I'd like it to remain with you for a little bit, you know, thinking about it, talking about it, discussing it with your friends. And you know, having that opportunity, I think, was really important, to both Jesse and I. Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's the kind of films I like to make. A movie that, like, people will say like, oh, this scene was cool and that scene was cool, but also, what do you think this was about, or what happened there, and having conversations about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is such a shared experience, and we were talking earlier before we started recording how much of a different experience it is to watch a film in a theater with other people, as opposed to watching it like just by yourself or just with one other person at home. And it's really, I feel like, meant to be shared. Like, visual art is great because it's portable, you can watch it anywhere, but I really feel like it's meant to be shared with a group, as a community. And it's just wonderful that we're, able to have these conversations and bring you into the festival via technology. But imagine how different it would be if you were in the theater with us on the
I
stage.
know, way to
Getting
rub it in.
people. But yeah,
Yeah,
but I love that one of the things that you love about it is that it gets people to talk to each other and like share their experiences and thoughts on a film. So that's also one thing that we love about our horror community.
yeah, I think it's great, and I love the idea that, like, people could walk away and one person could be like, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. And I like that, and that's okay. I mean, it's sort of like indicated by the reviews we've been getting. We've been getting some reviews, like one person, a review said something like, it's just like the most like brilliant film in the last 10 years, which it's like, okay, relax, but thank you, but it's a bit much, you know. And then somebody else was like, this is the worst movie in the last 10 years. And so, like, you know, and that's what, like, and people review things unofficially when they talk to their friends about it and everything. And I could see what, you know, when I'm in the theaters that I've shared the film with, you could see when people leave, I could tell which ones were like, oh, wow, that's cool. And people were like, what? Why did I just sit through that? And it's sort of funny.
I feel like there's something to be said for paying attention to what you're watching, though, because sometimes we read reviews of stuff. Because we absolutely, if you guys post things when you submit your films, if you post reviews, we look at them. But there was one review that we found that said they said it was like the next Cabin in the Woods, which made me think that they hadn't actually watched the movie all that closely.
No. Well, it's funny that they wrote that. I think where they might have got that from is like way back when we were starting to do our Kickstarter campaign, and Bill Moseley was tentatively attached. That Fangoria picked up the story and said that Adam Ryder's Woodland Gray is the next Cabin in the Woods. And I was like, why would you be like, why, like, there was no, because they never read the script, and like there was the little blurb about what the movie was about had nothing like that. So like it was really strange. So I wonder if that got in there, but I know exactly which one you're talking about, and I thought it was a weird connection too. Like, I'm not sure. And people wrote all kind, like, yeah, the reviews they're just so all over the place sometimes. And At one point it's like, I feel like if this person, if their biggest complaint is that they didn't understand the film, then it shouldn't be a criticism. I think that it could just be like, hey, I saw this movie, I don't get it, maybe you might get it, here's what I liked about it, here's what I didn't like about it, but like the I didn't get it part should not be a criticism. Like, fine, you didn't get it, you don't get it, that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's
Not
fine.
all of us are gonna necessarily connect with every single movie, but that's okay.
No, I had this one of the first movies I ever made. It's this short film called Dog Sitter, and it premiered at Trauma Dance. Um, you know, like the Trauma guys, and in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I drove down there and screened in this small little theater, and it was. I remember sitting in the theater, and halfway through the movie, I heard somebody behind me quite loudly say, "This movie is making me angry." And I was thrilled because I was just like, thank God somebody felt something. There was like an actual reaction to the thing. And it wasn't like this movie's stupid. It was like I'm feeling a feeling that was created from the thing that I created. And I was just so happy. I mean, it's a funny thing to be happy about, but like, you know, so when there's bad reviews or things that come out, you take them with a grain of salt, and that's what making art is. It's like it's interpretation. And I mean, to be fair, maybe I'd feel differently if every review was bad,
Sure.
but
That's okay.
it's not. It's not. They're all across the spectrum, which is something that I appreciate that.
Well, we also run the HP Lovecraft Film Festival, where you'll find films not unlike Woodland Gray that are horror with a cerebral edge and a creeping creeping atmosphere of dread to them. And I mean, this film for us, we connected with it clearly. It's like right up our alley. It has all the things. Well, it has all the things I love: strong female lead, a man who doesn't talk very much, like creepy forests, kids and creepy kids and woodland creatures and things like that. So thank you very much for sharing this with us, and we're just thrilled for our audience to see it, and hope they enjoyed it as well. But we should probably wrap up and let you get on with your day too. But before we go, can you share with everyone where to find you on social media or the internet, and where to find out more about your film work in general, and also specifically about Woodland Gray?
Yeah, great. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having the film play at your festival. I mean, it's just when I got the acceptance notification, I was really, really excited. So you guys have a really, really cool festival, and I'm honored, truly honored to be part of it. So thank you so much. You guys can find me at Adam Reider Official on Instagram. That's the best place to see what's going on in terms of social media. But you can also see sort of like what's coming down the pipeline if you go to spectropiapictures.com. That's the website that is through my film production business that helped produce Woodland Gray, and you can see all the other movies that are sort of like in development and stuff. And please reach out on social media. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the film. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you absolutely hated it. It's okay. But yeah, I would just love to hear from everybody, and yeah, follow me, see what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you. This was great. This was really great.